And we are recording, and it's Monday, November 19th, heading into Thanksgiving week, and we're at the very end of week 4. And if it's all right with you guys, what I thought we would do is Wednesday, it turns out we're doing a family thing to the San Diego Zoo, woohoo. And so what I thought we could do is cover a few things tonight and also dive into Wednesday. And then if I need to, I can do a follow-up webinar for Wednesday, but we'll kind of get an early jump on the midway point of the course, if that's okay. And cancel class for Wednesday. Everybody gets the day off for Thanksgiving.
Woo!
Yay! So any questions? Anything going on that you guys would like me to cover? And how did you do after our conversation? How's your head?
It's still throbbing. No, I finished up the draft. Well, it's pretty final. My faults essay, because that's
okay, great.
I have to submit. I'm just kind of struggling with the word count. And then I interviewed another classmate who's a brand manager. So I'm doing a little recon on the business of wine questions in addition to this course. So.
Yeah. And on your trouble with the word count, and just for everybody's background and studying for the Master of Wine exam and that kind of stuff. So we had a coaching call on how to look at examination strategy and writing theory papers. So is your problem too many words or not enough?
It's never the not enough problem. No, I mean, my mentor said I should really try to keep it under 1,000 because he's like, you'll never have enough time to write it.
Right.
And I can be brief. The only problem is, to get it tighter, I'm at like 1,100 words with this essay. To get it tighter than this, I either have to not explain anything at all or just take out a whole fault.
Got it.
Because I've been pretty clinical with my, editing already. So I don't know how much more I can cut.
Okay. Understood. Yeah, and that's and so one of the things that Ann and I were working on is especially the outlining strategy and how to stick to the point of the questions for the MW exam. And there's this tendency of everybody just want to go instead of stopping and really thinking what are they asking, what are the boundaries of this paper, where does it start, where does it end, how wide do I go, and all that kind of stuff. And it's
well, Ann, if there's any consolation, I feel your pain, because when I sat my master's and we had to set a 4-hour non-note, non-book written essay exam, trying to keep it within the parameters, it was painful for me.
Yeah.
Like you said.
What's your master's in, Mark?
International commerce.
Got it. Oh, great. Awesome. You should teach this course.
No.
I'll step aside.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's and I don't know about you guys, but I really struggled even more because I just, never did well at essays or essay construction and so on. So I had to work really hard on that aspect of it. And so there we go. All right. So any specific questions? Anything pressing?
No.
Okay. Well, I didn't get any questions. That's why I thought we might just go ahead and jump ahead a little bit, if that's okay. And I will do that. I will make an executive decision. So let me go ahead and share the screen. And so what we're doing now is transitioning from the vineyards and the production end of things. Hopefully you enjoyed the working with the Wine Biz Sim. And also a note, there's supposed to be a link on the class site that is a video of me explaining how to do the blending session, and I'm going to reshoot that, and I'll post it before Monday next week. Okay. That being said, I think it's really pretty straightforward and simple. I'm not sure that the video would add that much because now we've got the tasting notes and the forms. Remember, this isn't required, and there's nothing necessarily to turn in, but it really is a great exercise if you can kind of put it together and go through the steps. It's kind of fun. So let me actually start by going to the class and show you where we are in the scope of things. So in the Napa Valley Wine Academy site, look away, I'm going to give you a headache. We're moving into, all right, you can look back again. Marketing, distribution, and sales. So we're done with the production and the vineyards, for the most part. The reason I have the cat here, as I mentioned earlier in the course, a lot of people don't recognize that in the wine industry, many times you're selling through a series of gatekeepers. And I've been doing this sort of section for a long time, and actually used to take groups of people that would come in for educational programs at Behringer, and we go down to a Safeway superstore in Napa, and we just go through the wine section asking questions about how did this display get here, who pays for what. If you're selling something to Safeway and you find this beautiful piece of, can you guys hear the banging in the background? Or yeah, we're in a condo and they've got an army of kids upstairs, and we're going to go bang them with a broom. But as we're going through it, and again, this is what I really encourage you to all be doing when you're in a tasting room, when you're in a wine store, when you're in a restaurant. How did this get here? What did it cost? Whose palm did they have to grease? And so just on a whim, I took everybody over to the cat food section, and I said, don't forget to get into this store. How many people did they have to sell to before you even get to the consumer? And that the cat food section, hi Jill, how are you? Welcome. The cat food section represents the idea that they're not marketing to the end consumer. They have to get through a gatekeeper, which is the pet owner. And it's just amazing that the amount of detail and psychology and what they're doing to promote this to the pet owners is absolutely amazing. There's the cat, and of course they're clean and white and pristine looking, but you've got crab cakes, you've got these dill things, and they'll even have the picture of it on the little plate with a sprig of dill, and Chef Michael, the personal chef, and so on. And when you're looking at wine, you've really got to look at if you're selling through the 3-tier system and distribution, which we'll go through in more detail tonight. You've got to go out and you've got to make calls to the markets and go to the states and meet with the distributors, and you've got to make a pitch. The pitch that you're making for the distributor has to be on their terms, not your pie in the sky, we're a small struggling winery and handcrafted this and whatever. they just frankly don't care. What they want to know is what's your business proposition. And I think Mark and Ann will both agree that it doesn't matter what your product is, that this is true, you know, of any product of any business. So the gatekeepers then, you know, so maybe you finally make the placement with the distributor, but you're not done with the gatekeepers. The distributor who selects you, usually a sales manager or a specialist that's just, you know, the product manager, portfolio manager for the distributor, then they work with the sales manager in what kind of incentives, what products are you focusing on. And I'll never forget my first distributor sales meeting in Atlanta, Georgia in 1986, actually 1985. I was so excited, and I knew a lot of these salespeople. I did their wine education. I was a passionate wine guy. I had all this obscure stuff that I was going to bring into the market. And I go up and we do a little tasting, you know, think that, you know, that'll help out. And I had a red Sancerre. Everybody's familiar with the Sauvignon Blanc based Sancerre, but you can also have 100% Pinot Noir in a red Sancerre. Most people don't know that. And they make a rosé with that. So I'm Mr. Geek. I'm up there and doing the tasting, and here's all these products. And they're yawning, and half of them are asleep. And this is back when we had beepers, you know, or pagers, and that's it. So I did my shtick, and I'm packing up now, putting away my obscure wines, and a guy gets up and says, "Okay, everybody, 5 cases of Malibu spice rum on the floor. Get your picture, turn it in. You're going to the Bahamas," and everybody's screaming, "Yeah!" So, you know, there be, you know, all they have to do is five cases. No, it's Captain Morgan, sorry. Captain Morgan spice rum, 5 cases, get it on the floor, take a picture, you and your wife or best friend or partner or whatever, we're all going to the Bahamas. Nobody could give a dang about my red Sancerre. That's 100%. Who cares? So then as I worked with Behringer, and I also saw that when you do have allocated items, you've got leverage as a producer. Most small producers don't have that kind of leverage unless you've gotten the #1 wine of the year, or you know, 100 points from Parker, or that kind of stuff. So once you get the sales manager's attention, it's going to take something that they can then use as incentive for their salespeople. And again, it might be that in fine wine stores, something obscure, something lesser known, you know, might flip a switch for the buyer. But you know, they're working with their sales quotas and those kind of things, and the sales manager telling them what they really need to be focusing on. So they might spend some of that time with some of their top accounts, but it's a really tough sell. Okay, and then once you sell it into the store, oh great, you're on the shelf with 1,000 or maybe 2,000 other wines. Now what's going to call it out? Now what's your next step? So this whole part of the supply chain is complicated, it is time intensive, and it's very expensive, okay? And for your viewing pleasure, if you go on YouTube, if you try this, watch this video. It's really great, and it's a guy in Australia who does these things. And what he's doing is kind of has everybody thinking out loud. So he's got somebody in making a pitch to the distributor, this distributor in a Mr. Robotic voice, going back and forth and so forth. And then the other cartoon you get for this lesson is somebody going into the store with a representative from the winery and the and the buyer from the store, and going on back and forth. And it starts to get into, well, oh, you know, we've got an event coming up for an auction for our kids' school, so maybe you'd like to give us, you know, free wine and this kind of stuff. So these are very realistic and very well done. Highly recommended. Okay. And then there's some required reading that's part of this as well. All right. Any questions about the next lesson? Okay, so some of this is going to be pretty routine for some of you, but again, reviewing what we hit upon last week, the sales channels, and that being direct to consumer, which is really, really specific, that it's a tasting room, that it's something called cellar door, it's wine clubs, it's mailing list, but there's no intermediary between the winery or an operating company of the winery, you know, a subsidiary. Because usually if you've got a tasting room, you want to run that as a separate business unit, you know, from the winery, and we've gone over that. So direct to consumer, direct to account, which is legal in most states and allows a limited wholesale license to a producer so that they can sell to restaurants and hotels and bars and stores within their state. And then in this case, the winery takes on the entire role of the distributor. You've got to go out and make the sales. You've got to service the accounts. You've got to create the invoices. You've got to do the deliveries. You've got to do the collections, which can be a real big, big thing. And then you've got to do it all over again. Now, there's a couple really interesting business models, if anybody wants to look them up and do a little research. Kendall Jackson, years and years ago, got fed up with the California three-tier system, and they were with Sonoma State University, I'm sorry, with Southern Wine and Spirits in California in the three-tier system. And they, for a large winery, they really went out on the limb. They severed that relationship and they started their own distributorship. Now, in this case, they went big. So it's Regal Royal Distributing. Hey, you guys, quit texting. I don't know how to turn off Messenger. So Regal Royal Distributing now is a full-blown distributorship with warehouses, with sales teams, and a very, very big portfolio. But it was originally set up just simply by the Kendall Jackson organization to sell in the state of California. So that's the big picture. The small picture is a little winery that's in Alameda, and it's a guy who sells, he's got a tasting room. There's kind of this it's not really urban, but it's sort of outer urban collection of wineries in Alameda. And he sells 90% of his production to one hotel in San Francisco, the JW Marriott. And he's just built this killer relationship. He has to have the direct-to-account wholesale license to do this. And he's become their go-to for their large conventions and events and whatever. He's pretty much their house wine, and he's not the least expensive. So he hit this nice upsell tier. He goes out if they ever need somebody to come do a winemaker dinner. He's on call if they need 5 cases of something for a banquet or a last minute mess up with one of the others. He throws it in his car, drives over the bridge, and makes the delivery. So So there's a couple of extremes in direct to account. But he's got to market it, he's got to service it, he's got to do all those things. Internet reseller is not direct to account. That's the wine.com or any company. It's also, there are many new companies that are finding that one of the biggest problems with a wine club is the limited amount of wine, unless that person's really passionate and will take their regular shipments of the wine club. I think the number 2 reason for leaving a wine club is because they're tired of the same wine, or there's nothing new, or they're getting wine that they don't like. So now there are sort of third-party wine clubs that'll be a collection of different wineries, and if you collect 5 different wineries or 10 or even more, then you can actually be that gatekeeper. You can put together selection of certain styles of wine on a more regular basis. And so it keeps the diversity and the interest going longer. 3-tier system is the 3 levels of licensing that we talked about: production, wholesale distribution, and then the license to sell to consumers either on premise or off premise, and the wonderful world of export. Okay, so that's kind of a review. I joined Beringer Vineyards, and I didn't know really the difference between marketing and sales. And so for some people, this will be very helpful, and there's a link at the bottom of this for anybody who wants more. But primarily, in this definition, marketing is not the transaction, but it's developing the demand, fulfilling customers' needs, kind of creating the value proposition, promoting the product, getting it out there and known. And sales is when a transaction takes place. So it's kind of a very workable definition. This will be a really good one for you, Ann, also, because it's just very concise. Everything to get up to that point of transaction is marketing, and even the retention and the long-term, customer relationship management and so forth. Now, sales does a lot of the marketing activities, but they're really responsible for the transaction. And again, through the gatekeepers, marketing and sales will work together on the distribution plan and approaching and how are you pitching to the distributor and so on. But when the distributor says yes, creates a contract, and then actually purchases the wine, then that's the function of sales. And then again, down the supply chain, when you get from that point of distribution, now you've got to go to the restaurants and you make that sale. And then finally the consumer says, oh, I'll buy a glass of this to have with my dinner tonight. I'll buy this off the shelf or whatever, and that's where the sales takes place. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so in terms of direct to consumer then, you've got to look at what's actually that point of transaction. And you can have a tasting room that could be at the winery or it could be remote. The mailing list sales, and these are either direct mail where it's sort of a wing in a prayer, or I sent out, did everybody see the email I sent out that actually had the guy starting a mailing list? And this was kind of interesting. And actually even I thought the name looked really familiar. Somebody who had taken this class about 2 years ago. And what he's doing is you can get on the mailing list to get these highly allocated wines. You can get an allocation, but you have to join the wine club to get our allocations. And again, I don't know that that's the best strategy or not, but whatever works, works. And if he can pull it off, then, ka-ching, ka-ching. And then internet direct, we've talked about this, is you've got a shopping cart on your website and your wines are listed and whatever. Very little in the way of actual transactions happen there, but it's kind of a requirement to have it because really you want to induce people to join the wine club, give them free shipping, give them a discount, those kind of stuff. And then there's at-home wine tastings and sit. Have any of you seen what's going on with this with Raymond and Wine Shop at Home? And I've done a lot of work, my company has, with the Wine Shop at Home group, and really just love them. What I found fascinating about Wine Shop at Home is that, number one, they pulled in really expert people in multi-level marketing, all right? Meaning that they induce people to order wines, join the wine club, buy our products, and they actually have somebody come to your home, and then you bring in, 4 or 6 of your friends. You taste the wines. They got score sheets and order sheets, and so it's like the Tupperware or Amway of wine. Well, they're right in your home and in doing that. But what's really neat is how over the past 5 or 6 years or so that Wine Shop at Home has also vertically integrated. So they started with just bulk wines and private label kind of stuff, and it was successful. Then they opened offices in Napa. Then they got a kind of industrial park functional winery out by Napa Airport, and then they bought a winery, and they started diversifying in the winery has vineyards and stuff. So they're now completely integrated. They've got their estate wines, they've got their bulk wines, they've got inexpensive wines, they've got reserve wines. And so what they've been doing is, when I was saying earlier about how there are these almost co-op wine clubs now so that you can have more diversity, that's what they're really working to do, is to be able to diversify and have enough products, and they come right into your home. And then the multi-level marketing, boy, this is really fun. Everybody had a blast, bought some wine. Oh, you could do it too if you want to be in the wine business. And so a lot of people are parlaying this as a stepping stone to get into the wine business also. So not only to do it in their area, they've got over 3,000 active consultants around the country that are out there. Their national conventions are a hoot. I've attended numerous ones now. The people love it. And again, you can earn bonus points, and you can, qualify for the trip to Cancun or Italy. I think they're going to Italy this year. And it becomes like this whole community of people, okay? And then the other direct-to-consumer sales is more and more events. It used to be if you went to a wine tasting somewhere and you taste a wine and say, oh, I love this, where can I find it? Oh, well, it's at these stores, or maybe you're not even in the market yet. You're there so that you can do this. More and more at these events, you can actually bring product to sell directly to consumers at off-site events. So this is kind of a burgeoning. The first time I ever ran into this was in British Columbia, Canada, and it was an event my wife and I love to go to, and it was the Vancouver Playhouse Wine Festival. And in their big tasting, even though, and especially when this was happening, because this was 20 years ago, they actually set up a liquor control board area and stocked it with product so that you could taste wines and purchase it and leave with it, which was the first time I ever had seen it, but this is becoming more and more regular. Different states, different countries all have their different laws and regulations about that, okay? All right, So that's the world of direct-to-consumer marketing and sales. Any questions about that? Y'all are a quiet bunch.
So Tim,
Yeah,
the tagline said that internet sales is not direct to consumer.
an internet reseller.
Reseller, right?
Yes. So if you sell on your internet site direct, then it is. But if you sell to wine.com, it isn't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
There's a middleman there.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's really, and there are a lot of different ways and different ways technology are employed for these. So what can happen is you can have a wine marketing company, and they do a blog. You can actually find this at Cameron Hughes, because Cameron Hughes also does this. They'll actually bring in products that they're not making, but it has the winery label and the story and about the winemaker, but you purchase it on their site. And then once they process the transaction, and they might not ever even handle the goods, so it might just trigger that the winery gets the order and the winery fulfills the order, and then Cameron Hughes takes their pre-negotiated percentage of the sales. Okay. So there's more and more of these kind of companies, and they're sort of aggregators. So instead of having to search and do business and sign up and put your credit card with all these different companies, if you can find somebody that's doing this that you as a consumer are comfortable with, this would be an internet reseller. And sometimes all they're doing is you make the purchase on their site and click through, and it's just like kayak.com or Trivago or whatever. So they get that click through, and that's how they monetize it, and it passes through to the winery, and the winery actually even ships and packs and processes everything.
So, Tim.
Yes.
So basically, Cameron Hughes works like Amazon then. Because, Amazon has their own product, and then they also sometimes are just a conduit.
Yes.
Okay.
In a way, yes. And I really urge taking a look at some of these sites. I think I sent out last week with the PDF version links to a number of different sites, and CH Wines is one of them. Another one to look at is Naked Wines out of the UK. And Naked Wines is another internet reseller. And they've created a somewhat cockamamie angel funding scheme. But basically what you do is you put money into Naked Wines, and then you get access to these deals and this and that. So that's another one I really recommend doing a little exploration to see what the heck are they doing. Now what they then do is they fund, let's say I'm an assistant winemaker at a really well-known winery in France or in Napa Valley or Washington or Virginia or something like that. I can apply to Naked Wines and say I want to make my own wine, and I'm just waiting for my big break. I don't want to give up my day job yet, but I've got a facility, I can do this, and basically Naked Wines will bankroll them to make the wines to then only be sold through their site. So this is really a whole new thing, and they're opening tasting rooms in different cities. And remember that to open a tasting room, you're getting a retail license. You're usually getting your on-premise, license so that people can buy a tasting flight or sample wines and do all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't know I've got a winery in one area, and I want to open a tasting room in downtown Houston or Atlanta or whatever. And fundamentally, you do a DBA, you create an entity and whatever, and open a wine store. And you might even co-opt that, because it's hard to exist on a really small amount of wines. There's another business model look at, it's called Naked Winery. So not Naked Wines, but Naked Winery. And they're in Oregon, and they've got a tasting salon in a real shishi part, the Old Mill district of Bend. And, you can go there for a glass of wine, little nauseous of food, do happy hour there and whatever. And I believe it's just simply licensed as a bar. But they sell their products in there. So I'm not exactly sure how they set it up, but that's another sort of hybrid model that's kind of fun to look at. Cool. And then at the Old Mill, there's a couple of tasting rooms now, and this is where every people are pulling together right now, and a lot of this is the Sonoma Square, and this is actually quite old. It's grown since then, but you look at the competition just for the people who are coming to Sonoma Square for the day. But instead of having to drive all over and drink or rent a limo and whatever, you can get your hotel close to Sonoma Square. You've got a high density of really, really great restaurants. You've got craft breweries and all that kind of stuff. You've got fancy jewelry shops and clothing stores and whatever. And over 30 tasting rooms just at the square. These are not at the winery. So almost every one of them will probably have a tasting room at the winery. But what's happening with permitting in tasting rooms, I mentioned this earlier, it bears repeating. There's a moratorium on new winery tasting room permits in the Napa Valley. And you may be able to spend a lot of money and time acquiring a limited tasting permit, but it will probably be by appointment only. So you just can't have an open tasting room and what we think of. And that creates so imagine now that you're marketing your tasting room, but you're marketing as appointment only. So you try to leverage that as scarcity. You try to come up with something really special. And in a lot of these wineries, it's $200 a person for the appointment only Napa Valley experience. And they do all the wine and food and all this kind of stuff. So what they'll do if they can only get a limited permit, or if there's a zoning issue or no permit at all, there's nothing to prevent them from opening a shop or a store on the Sonoma Plaza. It might even be a whole separate DBA and whatever that's using the winery's name. And then it's all done under a separate licensing and so on. So it doesn't have to be any other permit other than the normal zoning and that kind of stuff for wherever the site is. All right. So Anne, this one's for you. And this is, Anne and I were talking, there are so many wines or words that are thrown around in the wine industry without really drilling down into exactly what is and what does it mean. how does it apply to wine and those kind of things. And one of the most notorious of those words in both Wine and Spirits Education Trust and the higher level, and then certainly the Master of Wine, is the word brand. They'll all always say, you know, what is a brand? or something that's embedded, and it's like, we call them black hole questions. You know, you can just go down it and never be seen again. So I love etymology and looking at words, and it's sort of a family sickness. But primarily the brand was something that was burned into livestock or prisoners or boxes or whatever. It was a mark, an indelible mark that showed connection or ownership of something. Okay, so if we look at a product manufactured by a particular company under a particular name, we could say a brand of wine. But also, you can look at anything that is marketed to offer some sort of unique selling proposition or value proposition that is really worked to be burned into the psyche of the consumer, could be considered a brand. So it can be argued that Napa Valley is a brand. Yes, it's a valley. Yes, it's a wine growing region, but it's also got its own marketing arm, the Napa Valley Vintners Association. They work really, really hard to protect the name and to promote the name around the world, so it is a brand. Going a little bit further of a stretch, you could say Chardonnay is a brand. Okay, it means something. It has certain protections around it, and people may go into a restaurant or into a store, and for some reason people hate this in restaurants, but yes, I'll have a glass of your Chardonnay, and they're not asking where it's from, or you know what its credentials are, or what kind of provenance does it have, or whatever. They just want a glass of Chardonnay. And so that's really what's in their mind. That represents what it is that they're after. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? And then the market is the area or the arena where the commercial dealings, you know, it's kind of the point of sale, but it also represents the people who utilize that point of sale, who go to the store. So you've got, you know, a market, which could be a grocery store. I'm going to the market, and that was originally, it was specifically the place or the arena, but now we also talk about market segmentation, meaning if you took all of the wine consumers in the world and broke them down by region, so you're doing segmentation geographically, then you do it by age, then you do it by income and those kind of things, all right? Something I really want to impress here, tonight I've got one millennial son coming, and tomorrow we've got the other millennial son coming, and you'll hear, oh, millennials are this, or millennials are that. That is such a useless, gross overgeneralization of a market segment, because our kids are coming, and one kid is Mr. Bling, and the other kid is Mr. Dumpster Diver, okay? One's an electrical engineer, one is just the consummate DS salesman, brilliant, engaging, that you could imagine. They're both millennials, they're both from the same family, and they are just worlds apart. So one of the things that I'm aware of constantly in the wine industry is how often we tend to make just these gross overgeneralizations about market and market segmentation. Okay. All right. So given the brand, given market, and in defining a market, then the action of business promoting and selling the products or service, including market research and advertising. And this is really tough in the wine business. And we're going to get to how tough it is. And later we're going to go through Nielsen data and kind of look at where do you find the data on this stuff. Here's what makes marketing or a market analysis or market data collection so hard. We so embarrass wine consumers that they would rather lie about what they like or even tell you they don't like wine because they're so intimidated and afraid of the product. This is not a good thing, you guys. It's just not a good, healthy thing, all right? My mother-in-law won't be here, but my wife's sitting over here on the couch. When we got married, I showed up at her door for Thanksgiving 26 years ago, 27 years ago. And I had a case of Beringer White Zinfandel under one arm and a leg of lamb in my free hand. And the door came open. I said, "Hi, Mom." She goes, "Hi, son." She had never even met me. Now she's calling me son. She saw a case of White Zinfandel, a leg of lamb. I won, you know. And my wife's there with the luggage. "Hi, Mom." "Oh, put that downstairs, honey. Come on, son. Let me show you the kitchen." My wife's laughing because she got totally pissed off. My wife, Joanne, she's a millionaire. She did pro tour, semi-professional golf. She's a PhD in economics. She's golfed in Scotland and whatever. She's not what the wine industry tells her she is. Does that make sense? And it doesn't matter if you love Robert Parker. There are people in this wine industry out to get you because that's horrible. The 100-point system is terrible. That's stupid. Blah blah blah. If you love this style of wine, it doesn't matter who you are. Somebody in this industry is out to get you. So it's kind of funny. But what happens? It really prevents us from being able to use market data like other companies, because you can do surveys. Joanne won't participate. She doesn't go to wine events. She's not welcome. She won't drink wine in a restaurant because people have been trained to make fun of her and treat her like dirt. That's what we do. So anyways, I'll get off that soapbox now. But anyways, so marketing is that communication between you and your customers with the goal of selling something. So who wants to be a sparkling wine marketer for Thanksgiving? I'll be that. If you make sparkling wine, what goes best with turkey? Sparkling wine. I can see Jill's lips moving, going sparkling wine. If you make a $25 red blend out of bulk wine and sourcing from all these different grapes because you want to spend, where are you going to put your marketing dollars? What are you going to convince people is really excellent with their turkey for Thanksgiving? Your wine. You know, I look at these Facebook threads. There's this wine study group thing, and literally there's 200 or even 300. All somebody has to ask, what goes best with Cajun shrimp and grits? And all of a sudden, everything in the world. It's just simply what they like or what they're selling or whatever. I want you to pay attention to what's going on through this holiday season, because if you can actually just sort of step back and look at it through a business lens, it's just crazy. I mean, we're nuts. We're kind of crazy. All right. So there we go. All right, the 4 Ps, and we'll go systematically through this. And also on Wednesday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a brief webinar for Wednesday that everybody can watch remotely. And it's going to be introducing a business plan template, which will launch the second required project for you to turn in. All of you are going to be required to turn in a Wine Biz Sim cost of goods project or your blending cost of goods. If you're really getting into this course, I hope you've tried to make a $200, 500 cases of wine kind of thing and just plug in the numbers and see what happens. And I seriously, for anybody who's really seriously wants to just be blown away by the numbers, make $2 chuck, all right? Millions and millions of cases. How do you do it? And what is it now? Anybody know $3.49 or even $3.99? So it's, or I'm sorry, yeah. So it's $3 chuck or $3.50 chuck now. But the sheer scale and the logistics, how does anybody make any money doing that? And people are making money. This is not some frivolous kind of a thing. If you want your own $2 chuck, you can get it $24 a case from Bronco Winery in Napa. You can order roughly 26,000 cases. It's X number of container loads that you have to take within a year's period of time. You've got to pay in advance for it. You provide the label, they'll make you a label. Label schmabel, who cares? But you can get California, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Malbec, whatever that they're making for $24 a case, delivered, you know, to wherever, I'm sorry, FOB from that winery, you get it. All right. So anyways, marketing is 4 primary things. It's the product. That was the first half of the class. The price, and we went through the price calculator, how you determine that, how, you know, and look at, do a competitive analysis of products similar, or it might even, you might even be doing a competitive analysis that's a product that's not directly correlated to yours, but it's the market that you want to tap into. Does that make sense? So if you're selling certain wines, you might want to hit bourbon drinkers now. I mean, that's actually what's happened. Everybody's seen the bourbon aged beers and bourbon aged this and that. Everybody's trying to leverage that. My company's actually going into the bourbon consulting business. We're just getting ready to sign a contract, and it's fascinating. So so you got product, you got the price, and then place. And this is where we're getting into now. It's getting that product on the website with the license into the place so that it can be delivered. All right. So that's one of the places. It could be in a store. It could be part of a collection of another internet reseller's goods. It could be in a restaurant. It could be that by the glass. It could be you're at the JW Marriott in San Francisco and it's an open bar and they've got kegs of wine on tap that is a godsend to these large volume hotel catering and events departments. And it's coming from a little guy in Alameda who's now putting his product into kegs so that they just roll out with 3 taps, Chardonnay, Cabernet, and Moscato or Rosé or whatever it is, and it's ready to go. All right. So that, and then it's cash out of pocket or credit card, you know, for the bar at the event. And then the thing that I think we all think of, that I always used to think of, is development and implementation of the promotional strategy to the gatekeepers, to the all the way down the supply chain. Okay. All right. We talked about who cares. The cat doesn't care. Just put it on the floor, slop it on there. It's just fine. Put it on a plate. Here's a little sprig of dill. He doesn't care. He's there throwing up a hairball. But as we go through this next couple of weeks, I really want you to start thinking about this. And again, Ann, this is another one of these little tricks for writing your papers. When you get this, there will be questions on the Master Wine Exam. Discuss the importance of origin and provenance of a wine to this. And most people will write, oh, it's really important, because they think that's what the examiners. They also want to hear is, well, it's just a lot of people who don't care, and this is evidenced in so many different ways. And there are the people who do care. So part of marketing is making sure that the message, the value proposition, your unique selling proposition matters to the target for which it's intended. And that's the gatekeepers, and then identifying, now you can do a much better market analysis and figure out what you need to do to connect, to convert, which is to make a transaction and then keep them for a longer period of time. All right. So we've been through this several times, and now we're drilling into the actual point of sales. And keep an eye out for what people are marketing beyond the wine itself. Look on your Facebook page. I see it all the time, is whoever it is in front of the sign coming into Napa, all right, the wine region. You'll see events all around the world with the different wine marketing organizations from Washington, Virginia, France, Italy, New Zealand. In January, I'm going to a conference in Marlborough, New Zealand. It's put on by the Sauvignon producers and sponsored by the New Zealand Department of Agriculture, okay? Because they've got a vested interest in their economy and that being a success. So, and then there are other promotional organizations that are sort of a group of interested producers like ZAP, the Zinfandel Advocates and Proponents, or whatever it is. And they do their big event. There was just a big Pinot Noir, annual Pinot Noir event, and there's all sorts of chatter about that. Then look at products and production equipment and supplies. One of the things to really look at who's marketing in a very focused manner is the shipping services and shipping companies. If anybody's not familiar with it, go look up Golden State Overnight. And also be aware, if you're in Oregon, Golden State Overnight sucks. And I told them I was going to tell my class that they suck, because they're supposed to be doing business in Oregon, and we can't get something picked up. It takes us 3 or 4 or 5 days for our overnight delivery to get picked up, but they're cheap as hell. and it's really a fascinating business model for what they've created. All right. There are accounting and all sorts of products and services, legal, IT, websites, online, education, events, distributor marketing. And this is a very, very important part, because there's a whole wholesale, let's see, WSW, Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America is the large lobbying body and collective for the distributors. And we're talking billions and billions of dollars, and they really have to work hard to put a positive spin on some of the not so positive stuff that they do out there. That kind of stuff. And then, of course, you've got the stores and restaurants and wine bars and tasting rooms and wine clubs and that whole world of marketing. All right. So keep a lookout up and down the supply chain and who's doing what, who's marketing to whom. And then the final thing and we'll wrap this up, is I never had a clue that marketing was working with the vineyards at Beringer, with the vineyard managers, with the grape the grape grower representatives, and whatever, and forecasting. And the vineyard was at marketing was the one who was kind of the centerpiece that was saying, okay, all right, here's our forecast, here's our marketing forecast, here's our sales forecasts. So in year one and then through 10 years, all right, trying to forecast what the hell's going to happen for each of the wines and the varieties and the price tiers and the labels and the many, many different wineries, because somebody's got to establish those quotas and create, you know, where this business is going, and then communicate it back to the source. Do we have enough vineyards? Do we have enough contracts? Do we have too much? How can we have this ship going in the right direction? Of course, the marketing was responsible for product design, labeling, and the whole brand management end of it. They were designing the point of sale cards and brochures and advertising, and if you were giving coupons and discounting structure and that kind of stuff. Then they did the whole supply chain, from the tonnage requirements to the wine volumes, packaging, production schedule, and distribution. So they've got to make sure everything's done in a timely fashion. They work with sales to do the pricing. They have to coordinate discounts and post-offs in different markets for different accounts for different products. Design and produce and distribute all the promotional materials. And in every warehouse, at every major distributor, asked to go see their promotional material room. And it's where expensive promotional materials go to die, that never get distributed and get filled up with Crummers. Remember, Crummers was such a great, because you could put, you know, the winery name, and the waiter whips out the crummer to remove the crumbs off your table. That was a joke. Advertising and ad calendars, and then PR and communications. At Beringer, that was actually, we were an island unto ourselves. I was originally hired in 1979. Wait, no, in 1988, as director of PR and communications for Beringer. And we worked with marketing, but we were separate from marketing. But in other structures, PR and communications is an essential internal element of that. So different people, different companies construct things differently, okay? All right, so I'm going to introduce the business plan section, and from now to the end of the course, you're going to be working on a business plan template. I'm going to send that out with the recording of this. I'll do a separate thing to cover the business plan section, and at the end of the course, you'll turn in your business plan and your new Wine Biz Sim, and I'll go over that in the next little recording that I do for you. Okay, and we'll go over these kind of things. All right, questions? Answers? Jill just sits there with a smile on her face, mouthing things like, oh, and she's got her glass of wine. That's great. All right, you guys, that's it. So thank you very much, and have a really, really great holiday season. And
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Have a good holiday.
We will.